Hello neighbors, it's Brad here from eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the eTrailer trailer hitch receiver on a 2025 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. And Jeeps are synonymous with adventure, so why not bring more things along with you that maybe you can't fit in your Jeep, or maybe you can just expand what you do on your adventures with a cargo carrier, a bike rack, or even pulling a trailer with a ball mount. So this is going to be a great option. It's a super easy installation, and I think you're going to be really happy with what you can now do with your Jeep. So let's take a closer look at it. One of the great things about this hitch is it's a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening. And what that means for you is when you pick out accessories, most of them are going to be a standard of 2" by 2". So you have tons of options when it comes to cargo carriers, bike racks, or even ball mounts. And all of those accessories will stay in place with a 5/8 pin and clip. Now this is not included with the hitch. Many times when you pick up accessories, they'll have them included, but something I always recommend to people that leave accessories on for extended periods is maybe picking up a locking pin and clip. That's gonna allow you to really make a deterrent for anyone that might be walking by and wanna take out your pin and clip and those accessories with them. If you plan on pulling a trailer with your Jeep, you're going to be hooking up safety chains, and our safety chain loops are a plate style, and they're just a circle, so pretty easy to hook up our standard S hooks. Your larger clevis style, you can still hook up. You may want to go at a slight angle, really kind of minor because it does snap on there. Now speaking of that, when it comes to towing, you're going to want to take a look at your vehicle's owner's manual and see what the Jeep is capable of towing, and compare that with the capacities on the hitch. Take the lowest number, and that way you're not overloading anything in the process, and it keeps you safe. Now this hitch is rated pretty well. You have a gross trailer weight rating of 5,000 pounds, and that's going to include the trailer and the accessories loaded onto it. Now tongue weight is going to be the pressure that's on the inside of the receiver tube opening, and that really accounts for a lot of your suspended accessories, so cargo carriers and bike racks. 500 pounds, pretty solid for that. So that means you could get a 4x bike rack on here, assuming you don't have extremely heavy bikes, or a cargo carrier loaded up on vacation. And I really don't worry too much that you're going to overload that. Now it can be used with a weight distribution hitch, and sometimes with those you get a little bit higher capacities. That's not the case on this one. It does stay the same with the 5,000 pounds for gross trailer weight rating and 500 for the tongue weight rating. Now, along with that, something that you're going to want to keep in mind for any suspended accessories, your cargo carriers and bike racks, as you go up inclines, just keep in mind those are going to tilt towards the ground. So you want to make sure those don't make contact. Just keep that in mind. It's a pretty high ground clearance, so I don't think you'll have too many issues there. But now, speaking of kind of making measurements and making sure that everything works well with the Jeep, let's take some, and that way you can choose the right accessories. Now, something that's unique to not just Jeeps, but off-road vehicles with a spare tire on the back is sometimes you're really limited on what accessories you can use without having to add additional things. And mostly what that's going to be is folding cargo carriers and bike racks. A lot of them, they stow in a vertical position, which is really nice. It shortens the length of the vehicle, but because of our spare tire, we want to make sure that we're going to get an accessory that works. So measuring from the center of our hitch pin hole to the furthest point on our tire, it's about 7 inches. So look for something with a longer shank, or you may even need to look at an extension. Now with that, a lot of times you're going to reduce the carrying capacity, so just keep that in mind so you're not overloading it. But when you're looking for a ball mount, you're really going to want one with a longer shank so that ball sticks out far enough for you to safely couple your trailer. Now going along with that, we're going to grab the ground clearance. So from the top of the receiver tube opening to the ground, we're coming in right at 21 inches. So it's going to be really important to get a ball mount to get your trailer nice and level. And the best way to do that is take our measurement, and if you have your trailer available, get it level as possible and measure from the ground to the top of the coupler. Compare that with our 21 inches, and then you can determine the rise or drop necessary to keep that trailer level going down the road. And with this height, more than likely, I would say you're probably going to have a slight drop to be able to get that level, but it's all dependent on trailer. So main thing is you have a safe towing experience. Now, chances are you're watching this video because you want to see how to get this installed, and I'm here to maybe make your day a little bit better. This is super easy to do. It just slides up onto part of the frame in the back, and then there's just going to be 4 bolts that go in. But the muffler does sit kind of in the way of it, so you are going to want to drop the isolator down and get that muffler out of the way to get the potentially factory bolts out, and then the new hardware in. And I mention that because some trims, different engines, whatever it may be, differentiate on the Jeep as to what it kind of looks like under there. They're all going to have 4 holes, but some of them will have a plate that has weld nuts with factory bolts. That's what we had today. If yours has that, then it'll be pretty well identical as to the install you'll be doing. If it's slightly different, well, you get the bolts still with the hitch. So it's going to be a pretty similar concept. So none of it's particularly hard. You can definitely do this in your driveway or garage. And you need minimal tools, 18mm socket, 19 ratcheting wrench potentially, and then a torque wrench to get it all down. A pry bar is also helpful, but really this is a pretty straightforward installation. So this is one you can definitely tackle, but if you don't have the time, the place, the tools, or even the want to do it yourself, don't worry about it. You can have someone else get it installed, and that way you can be out on the road enjoying the hitch rather than fretting about the install. And you can use our dealer locator to do that. You'll simply put in your zip code and find a list of installers that are going to be able to get this installed in your area, and take all that headache away from you. Now, for you DIYers, stick around. I'll walk you through step by step. Let's get this hitch installed on your Wrangler. Now, there's 2 isolators that we're going to pry off. To get that pried, you're going to first find them on top of the muffler, and we're going to use a pry bar. You can use a long flathead screwdriver, and try to use the hangers and the muffler as leverage to be able to pry this back. Now, sometimes, especially if you've done some off-roading in your Jeep, these can get caked up with dust, dirt, and debris and make them a little bit more difficult to pry. So if that's the case, you can use some soapy water, and that's just going to help lubricate this. So these are fairly flexible, so if you need to, you can put your pry bar in. And sometimes I like to use the top hanger as leverage to get this to pry out, but we'll get this taken down, and then we'll repeat on the other side. It's a doozy. Doozy. This is not an easy isolator to get to or really get leverage on. So really just kind of work this back, and you can also move the muffler a little bit. So if you're right at that edge, you can push on the exhaust tip, assuming that the exhaust is not hot. Soapy water definitely helped out, so I would recommend doing that just to kind of help lubricate that along. We're going to get our hitch raised up, and you'll find that there's going to be this plate that I mentioned earlier, and grab a pry bar or a flathead screwdriver, and in the center section there's a small divot that you can kind of pry that back. And the reason being is we need to slide our hitch in between that and the frame. So if you pry that back and just get a little lip started through there, this should slide up fairly easily. And once you hold that up, grab your factory bolts, and we're gonna get that aligned. If you need to, sometimes this can be tight, you can kind of hit it with a dead blow, kind of get it lined up until we can get these started. So I'm just gonna get a few threads started to make sure it's all aligned. We'll grab our other factory bolt and do the same on the other side. Once all of the hardware is started by hand, we're going to snug everything down. You don't need to get crazy here using an impact or anything like that, because we'll come back with a torque wrench to properly torque it down. But this just saves us, really having to use the torque wrench to tighten it. So the outside factory bolts, as we know, are 18, so we'll get those snugged down. And then to snug down our new hardware, we're going to use a 19mm socket and a 19mm wrench. It is pretty narrow on the rear of the vehicle, so that's why that wrench comes in handy, to be able to hold that in while we tighten this down. So we'll get these all snugged down and then immediately come back with a torque wrench. So keep this wrench handy, that way we can torque it down later. Now with our torque wrench, we'll just go back through and torque everything down. The torque settings are found in the instruction manual. If you don't have a torque wrench, you can get one here at eTrailer. You can generally go to an auto parts store and rent one for free. This is going to be an important step because obviously you want to make sure that it's going to be tight enough for all of your accessories and towing things down the road, but also you can over tighten this, especially with weld nuts, and cause damage to the hardware. So this really makes sure that we get it dialed in exactly where we need it to be. Now, with that being said, a torque wrench, generally you're going to want to torque on the nut side and hold the bolt head in place. But due to the nature of this being really tight, I'm going to do it the opposite way. Now, you could use a crow's foot attachment, but I've found a lot of times with the torque wrench, you're asking for your knuckles to be busted on something. Because as you torque, those start to open up. If you have a box end one, you can absolutely use that. But if you don't have those tools at home, this is going to be a great alternative. So we'll get this torque wrench on here, get my wrench in place on the nut, and we'll get this torqued down. And then we just repeat for the remaining hardware. Now hopefully this video was helpful in getting the hitch installed on your Jeep. And if there's anything that I might have missed or some tips or tricks that you found along the way that could make this easier for neighbors like you at home to get it installed, please leave a comment. If I did a great job, you can leave a comment as well. Along with that, if you're taking pictures of the install or once it's installed and you're out on adventures, send us some pictures of what you're doing. We love to see neighbors out there using our products in the wild and seeing what kind of adventures you guys all go on. So with all that being said, thanks for joining us, and hopefully you'll be out there towing with the help of this video. My name's Brad. Thanks for watching a look and installation of the eTrailer trailer hitch receiver on a 2025 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited.